Welcome to My People, the podcast. I'm your host, Anna Stewart. I'm the confidence coach with the Heart Center Women's Confidence Club. And today I have a very special guest with me today. I have Ashley Jean. Hi, Ashley Jean.
Hi.
Y'all, and that's her real name. Like, she's one of those people who was meant for like entrepreneurship and to be a big deal because her name is Ashley Jean. Is that not a celebrity name? I love it. So Ashley Jean has a creative agency in which she is a full service creative marketing agency dedicated to helping creative entrepreneurs, personal brands create cohesive brand visuals. And she also, in addition to being a creative marketing strategist and having this agency, she also has a studio. So she's a double entrepreneur, like doing things big time. And that creative brand studio is in Old Town Alexandria. And she is passionate about helping people tell their stories using high-end visuals and brand strategy. And so I'm so excited to have her here today. I actually met Ashley at a conference that we went to in Atlanta, and we ended up sitting next to each other. I think it was like on day 3 or something like that. It was like towards the end. Yeah. And it was like, we just kind of instantly connected. And it was just like a moment, like I was sharing with her, like my struggle with recovering from people pleasing. And she was telling me hers. And I was like, oh, girl, you got to be on the podcast.
Absolutely.
But she is a busy woman. Okay. Like I said, she runs 2 businesses. And so it took us a while, but I'm so glad you're here today. So thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So when did you first recognize that you had the habit of people pleasing?
We're in 2023. Hold on really quick. I think, do you hear an echo? Is it echoing from your end?
No.
No. Okay,
Is it
maybe it's
bothering you?
No, it's actually good now. Yeah, it's good
Okay.
now. Okay, perfect. So, I noticed, because we're in 2023 now, I believe I noticed in 2021, beginning of 2022, which is fairly recent. And I am turning 28 this year. I'm 27 now. And for me to just now be noticing like the things that I've noticed are people pleasing at this stage in my life, I don't want to say it's kind of late, but it is in my eyes a little bit, but it's never too late to kind of notice these things and start to fix them. But I really noticed it when I realized that I was putting so many people in front of my own needs, and it was causing me to be stressed, to be burnt out. I didn't have any energy to do anything that I wanted to do. And it honestly was because I was putting everybody's needs before mine. So my friends, my family, I'm part of a sorority, so my line sisters, and I just had a really hard time just saying no to a lot of things. And I would have like fear of missing out, so FOMO, just a whole bunch of things. And there just came a time where I was just tired and I just could not take it anymore. And I just noticed that something needed to change. So I ended up starting therapy in 2022. And one of the main things that I told my therapist when we started, I said, I really want to get better at having stronger boundaries, because I noticed that people pleasing is the thing in my life, and it ties into so many different aspects. So that's something that I've been working on for the past year, and I've definitely seen an improvement since then. But it's just crazy how much I just learned about myself and all the things that I was just letting slip through the cracks because of that people pleasing tendency.
Yeah, I love how you said that, like it like has its little hands on every single part of your life. I think sometimes we might notice it in certain areas, but like when we really take a step back and look at it, it's like, dang, this is like affecting every area of my life. So what was it like for you when you first started trying to put boundaries into place? What was that experience like?
It was hard. I felt guilty that I was I don't want to say being mean, but because people who know me for like a long time, it's like I've been a certain way. Like people know me as like the nice girl, like, just very easygoing, laid back, like I stay out of drama just because I'm a very like go with the flow type of person. But I was noticing that because I am such a go with the flow type of person, that some of those tendencies kind of tie into the people pleasing, stuff. And when I finally was starting to become more comfortable with myself, like learning, unlearning those things in therapy, it's like, ooh, this is like, oh, she's changed, or, she's a little mean now. Like the way I might say things might come off, I don't want to say aggressive, but it's like, I'm, I think one example is when I like the wording I used. I'm like a very formal texter, emailer, whatever you want to call it. And I think the way that my tone maybe comes off in email or text, it maybe sounds a little too professional, but that's just me setting my boundaries. And I think some people took it as me just being like very like stern and mean. And that is the very much the opposite of who I am. So it was very tough for me to find that balance and like, how do I set these boundaries without I don't want to say not hurting people's feelings, but making them feel uncomfortable or
Yeah.
having it sound mean, because that's like the last thing I want. So that was very tough for me to find like that perfect medium where I'm able to set those boundaries, but still on the other end, it being as taken as respectful. Cause that's like, if you know me, like that's never my thing to be, disrespectful
Yeah.
or, push buttons. So it was like a shocker when I heard like feedback, like, yeah, if you could tone it down a little bit. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it was pretty tough for me. And I just, um, yeah, it was just a lot. It was just a lot of learning, unlearning certain things. And I really struggled with it. And I would say I still struggle with a little bit with it now, but it's definitely gotten a lot better. Like if I'm not feeling comfortable with doing something personal or business wise, like I'm going to communicate that. And it actually has helped with my communication with people in certain things, has definitely improved a lot because I am not trying to people please my way into or out of things. But yeah, it was definitely a struggle at first. It took me a while to kind of get used to it, and I'm still working on it today.
Yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense because, like you said, like people have been so used to you being one way for so long that it's like, wait, what? Did you
Yeah.
have anyone that gave you like a lot of or a lot of pushback on these boundaries, or what was it like in other people accepting the new Ashley?
Um, I would say, I think I would say maybe like clients and maybe people who would reach out to me in DM, because I also noticed that because I'm a business owner and I was showing up on social media a lot, like I was getting a lot of attraction, people were starting to know my name. I became very accessible to people.
Mhm.
And that was really tough for me because it's like every day, it's like I feel like 30, 40 people are reaching out to me. And you can only imagine like how stressful that can be. And so instead of like not answering people back just because it became too much to deal with, it's like I kind of got more comfortable with telling people, hey, like, if you need something, I had to eventually get an executive assistant. It's like, hey, if you need something, you can email my assistant or this, and that. I had to end up getting a business phone. And when it comes to clients, having a business phone means that they kind of have a little bit more access to me than maybe the normal person, because, text messaging is so easy to do.
Yeah.
And there were times where clients would reach out outside of my business hours, which typically are like 9 to 5. Sometimes people would reach out at like 9 p.m. or 3 a.m. And I'd be like, 7 or something like that. I'd be out at dinner with my now fiance. And it's like, the business phone is ringing. And it's like, why is it ringing after hours? And if it's something where like somebody needs something, and granted, my job isn't really that urgent.
No.
Yeah. So It's like, why are you reaching out after hours demanding something? It sets off my entire mood if it's something that it's like, I just wasn't ready to receive that. And it's outside of business hours. Like, this is not something that I should be worrying about right now. So I think clients really got the most, I got the most pushback from a little bit, because it's like, no, I want what I want now. Like, I don't really care what you're doing, why you're doing it. I don't care if you're sick. I don't care if this and that. We want whatever we want now. So I think I got the most pushback from client. And it's tough to see that, because I do pour my heart into my business and into my clients. So when I did get, some pushback with like setting those boundaries that I set, it's it's tough. It's tough to kind of deal with. And I know the first time that it happened, because I never really had any issues with clients up until maybe like a year ago. It really hit me hard, because I'm like, I really, like I said, I don't like drama. I don't like pushing buttons. And so it really set me back to like have somebody who wasn't satisfied with the way that I was trying to set
Mm.
boundaries. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what did I do? But it's not my fault. I'm just setting a boundary, and they need to respect that. So
I love that you said that. I love that you switched it from in saying that it's not my fault, I'm setting a boundary and they need to respect that, instead of like internalizing it. Like, that is definitely really beautiful. Do you find that you are able to like continue that in your relationships now with clients? Are they still pushing back? Are things better? I know you said you had the assistant, but like, how do you manage all that now?
I think honestly, because I have an assistant, I feel like it kind of almost like smoothens things out. I think a lot of people at some point, I got the assistant. I don't think people thought that the assistant was real, or that it was like a made up person that I was using. And I was like, why would I do that? So, because I guess because it's virtual, it's like, oh, so and so is a real person. So, I think people, if it was just me trying to set those boundaries, some people would honor it, which is fine. But I think having, it's like that assistant is like a buffer almost. I think that's the perfect word to use. It's like, oh, she has somebody, like, she must really be busy if she has an assistant kind of handling these things for her. Like, if her assistant said she's busy and that we need to wait, or like, she'll get back to you soon, okay, we'll respect it. I've never really gotten, honestly, ever since I've implemented an assistant, I never really got any pushback for anything. And honestly, because my assistant is in my inbox like 24/7, especially 9 to 5. Well, not 24/7, because she has boundaries too, but between 9 to 5, she's in my inbox kind of just like communicating with clients. And I think that definitely helps a lot. And I'm wondering if that dynamic, if it was just me answering
Yeah.
as opposed to her answering stuff, like now, what that would kind of look like with clients, because I'm kind of curious now. But yeah, she helps a lot.
That I think that's really cool. Like, I can imagine that that's going to be helpful for somebody listening, because one of the problems, that we have as recovering people pleasers is that we are always trying to do everything ourselves. It's like we're so worried about being a burden. We're so worried about asking for help, despite the fact that we'll do everything for everyone else. But like, God forbid we ask for help.
Yeah.
And so that's like really powerful to hear you say, like, one of the ways I had to move past this is recognize that I needed help. I needed support. I needed someone to come in and be a buffer, and, to create that space so that you can have more peace of mind. And so that's awesome.
And I think before I got the assistant, like, people, I show up on social media a lot, like on Instagram, TikTok. It's so easy to just slip into my DMs, ask me a question, or like, if you have my number and you've known me from like undergrad or something, it's easy to just text me and ask for something. But it got to a point where I was just like, too many people reaching out to me. I almost changed my phone number because it just became so much. So I think having that assistant and just knowing that I needed help and being able to kind of just get over that pride of saying like, okay, I need help, like, let me actually hire some help. it definitely helped a lot. And then another thing my therapist recommended was getting the business phone, which helped tremendously, like just separating work from personal life. And I honestly saw an increase in my everyday life. It's like I didn't have so much anxiety of like having my personal phone here. It's like I pick it up and it could be so many clients or somebody reaching out like, hey, can I schedule a shoot? Hey, can I do this? That's why I honestly set up these systems, like the systems that I have. Having the assistant is great. Like not being so accessible to people. And I think that's my biggest thing is like the accessibility. And I think sometimes people take it the wrong way because it's like if somebody's looking to call me for like a photo shoot, like, hey, can you do a photo shoot in like 3 days or 4 days or something? It's like I can't be reached by phone unless you schedule a call with me. Like it's like you can't just pick up the phone and call me. For the studio, yes, because that's more like you're in my physical space and you need something, I'm there. But for regular like clients, you have to schedule a call just because it just got to a point where people were just calling randomly. And it's like I could be doing something and you're calling me and it completely sets everything off. So that's why I kind of had to set those boundaries, like setting up those discovery calls and stuff like that, and actually having people schedule those appointments because I want to try to stay as calm and peaceful as possible, like just take away that stress and anxiety because I didn't realize I had anxiety until I really started thinking about like the way these things were making me feel. Like a simple text somebody's sending me and I'm like tensing up, like why is this client reaching out at this time, like what is
Yeah.
it that they want? So I've kind of just had to learn how to just really set those boundaries, and my therapist has just been helping with like not being so anxious
Yeah.
anymore, just setting those separate boundaries by having those separate phones and stuff.
I love that too. I also like I'm a big fan. I've moved into like in the last couple years being really into like scheduling a lot of things
Mhm.
and using that as a means to be like, okay, I'm making sure that I am there for friends or whoever else, but I can't be there all the time, like, so this is when we can do it. And like, same thing with phone calls, like my friends, even my family members know, don't call me.
Yeah, don't call me at this time and this time. I'm working. I know I'm a
Yeah.
entrepreneur, but I have stuff to do for between 9 to 5 every day, just like you.
Yes, yes, that's wonderful. I think
Yeah.
that is so inspiring to hear you say that because like you've moved into having like these strict boundaries and like learning to be okay with it and like recognizing that this is what I need to do. And that's a far cry from being like a people pleaser in that you're always so worried about what's going to happen if you say this and you feel scared to say this and you don't want to disappoint people and you don't want to let them down.
I
Um,
was.
yes.
It was so hard to really get out of that mindset. Like, because that's how I used to be. I'm like, if I tell them this, are they going to be upset? Are they going to do this? I need more time to edit. Like, I need a few more days.
Yeah.
Like, I just need to communicate that and let them know. Or, like, I'm very much used to be uh over under promise, over deliver. But I
Mhm.
felt like there was a point where I was over promising and under delivering.
Mm.
And that became an issue because I thought I could do certain things. Like, for example, let's say I shoot with a client and they're like, oh, how soon can I get these back? My typical turnaround, let's say, is like 2 weeks. And I'll say, oh, well, I don't have much going on this week. I can get them back to you in a week. And then something unexpected in life comes up and it's like, I don't think I can get that back in a week like I said I would. So
Yeah.
just trying to be more realistic with myself and also just like giving myself more grace and time to um I guess just go through life honestly, just giving myself grace because I feel like there were a lot of times where I didn't give myself grace and like just give myself more time to really just let things settle in and like give myself time to finish things. Like I don't always have to be on go mode. Like I can rest and do things, because I think also sometimes I feel guilty for resting too.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other story.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You said something earlier and it just reminded me when you were just talking right now, is like, the fact of the matter is what you do is important, but it's not an emergency. Like those people
Yeah.
are not going to die. They don't get their photos back in 1 week and have to wait 2 weeks. Like they will not die.
Exactly.
Even if they try to act like they're going to die, they will not die.
I've had people act like they were gonna die if they didn't receive their photos. And it's not like I didn't communicate this with them. I always communicate with them. Like if there's a delay, if I told them I was gonna get their photos to them by Wednesday and I didn't, I'm not gonna get their photos to them by Wednesday, I always communicate it. And it's like, yeah, so sometimes people are just like, nope, we
Yeah.
want to know. So
But
the
like,
only time I really see it, not even, it's still not an emergency, but like if somebody has like a marketing campaign that's supposed to launch on a certain day, that's like the only thing really, but everything else.
no, but
Yeah.
I feel like that's like the theme with people in general. Like
Mhm.
they always want to act like their stuff is an emergency when really it isn't. And I
Yeah.
think, as recovering people pleasers, our tendency can be to be very empathetic in that and be like, oh, this
Yes.
is really important to them. So it's
Yeah.
really important to them. I
Yeah.
need to do this and this. And like, no, like
Yeah.
if it's an emergency, you need to call 911. Like, that's what I
Yeah.
always
That,
tell
that is
people.
that is me, because I'll be like, oh, this is probably a super important thing for them. And I will literally lose sleep trying to make sure that they're satisfied. And that leads to burnout. And I just cannot do it anymore. Like I promised myself I wouldn't edit on the weekends. And then I find myself editing on Saturdays and Sundays and missing things, missing going out with my friends, hanging out with my fiance, doing things. So it's like, I, ever since I really just set those boundaries with myself, set those boundaries with clients, like I don't edit on the weekends. You can catch me at 9 a.m. on Mondays, but I don't edit on the weekends. Um, Literally, like the past few months have been some of the best months of my life, just because I have been taking the weekends to really just like do things outside of photography, which also gives me more creative juices and makes me happier to interact with my clients.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That is beautiful because, yes, it's serving you and making you a better person for yourself, but it's also making you a better photographer. So it's like, it's a win-win when we finally decide to be like, listen, no, I'm not going to do all this.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. What inspiration can you give to those who are struggling with people pleasing right now?
um, hmm. I think I would say, like, how do I word this? It kind of ties into that emergency feeling, like with people demanding stuff from you that they may think is urgent and an emergency, but it shouldn't come at the cost of your peace.
Mm,
And um, you have to put yourself first. It wasn't until I started putting myself first when I really started to learn myself, what triggered me and what doesn't trigger me, what kind of makes me happy, what kind of calms me down. That's when I really started to get comfortable with setting boundaries and not feeling so guilty about the people pleasing tendencies that I had, in both business and personal life. So I would say don't put your mental health or anything at the expense of somebody else's needs. Like continue to put yourself first, because at the end of the day, if you're not your best self, you can't pour from an empty cup basically. So yeah.
I really like that you said that you had to kind of connect with like your own triggers. And can you tell me more about that?
Hmm. um I would say, um like those, when those people would text me or something and I just, either I'm just not in the mood or I'm just tired from my weeks. Like running two businesses is a lot. And I don't think people sometimes understand how much goes into it. And I know I don't always show the behind the scenes of what's happening just because I'm so busy. Like I don't always have the time to pick up my, phone and be like, I'm going through it right now. Like I just go ghost. So if you don't hear from me or see me on social media, like I'm going through it. And I sometimes just don't have the energy or just anything to just say like, hey, like I'm going through it right now. And that seems to be the time when people seem to reach out a lot, but like not to check on me. It's just like because they need something. And um I noticed that during those times when that happens is when I get a little bit more stressed. And I notice that those are triggers for me. So that's when I have to really like either talk to my assistant and say, hey, like, I'm really going through it today. Can you please let any client that reaches out, hey, she's not feeling well today. She's under the weather. Like she'll get back to you within the next 24 or 48 hours or whenever I told her to tell them that I'm getting back to them. I also have a social media manager who I had to hire at some point because social media was also becoming too much. I felt like I was showing up online more but I wasn't really like I I don't like social media. I'm only on there because of business. So I felt like I was putting so much energy and effort into social media and it's like it's so draining. So I hired a social media to kind of also set that boundary where I can kind of take those days and rest and she kind of handles everything. And I think at some point people also thought that my social media manager wasn't real because it's like, why aren't you answering or why are you doing this and that, but you're not doing this or like you're not answering my text message or calls because it's not me. Everything's automated or I have somebody else handling it so I can take a break. Because it's a lot. And I think I show up so happy and like motivated on social media, but people don't really see those days where I'm like literally going through it. So yeah, I don't even know how to even express that on social media and like, show people that it's not always, not every day is positive. There are some days where it's like, I really need to take a step back and like let this settle in before I can even come back and serve you. Because like I said, you can't pour from an empty cup. And if I'm struggling, I'm not going to show up as my best self for my clients. So yeah.
It's amazing to hear you talk about how you are able to like recognize it in your body now and like recognize like what happens mentally and use that as a sign that you need to engage more support with your assistant or your social media manager and a sign to step back instead of step in to do more. How is that for you? Like doing that now compared to what you did before? Like, how does that feel? Like, what is that like for you now?
I think before I would ignore the signs almost. And now I kind of know like, oh, I feel like my body feels a certain type of way, or I feel this, let me act on it in a way to prevent something else from happening. There was a time in I think it was 2020, where I was so caught up with the people pleasing with my clients in busy season that I literally ran myself into the ground and it became a health issue. I almost ended up in the hospital. So every time after that, it kind of makes me think like, you don't want to get back to that place that you were in before. So you really have to be more cautious and intentional with how you're handling things. It can become a lot. Like it's just so many times I'm thinking back where like I would put like, let's say I fall asleep with my laptop open. I wake up first thing in the morning, instead of doing like a morning routine that decompresses me, the first thing I'll do is get on my phone or get on my laptop, go answer those emails because it's like, it's an emergency. It can't wait. So I would miss breakfast. I wouldn't be eating. I would literally open my laptop, spend the entire day on the computer, not even getting up to shower and do like the normal everyday things. And it's like, if you do that consistently, it's going to do something to your mental health. Like if I'm not getting up to just get up in the morning, go for a walk, make breakfast, like shower first thing in the morning, I noticed these things where like if I'm waking up, just getting on my laptop, and then let's say I have like a doctor's appointment at like 3 o'clock that day. If I'm not showering until like 2 o'clock before I have the doctor's, I know I'm going through it because it's like I'm waiting till the last minute to do certain things because I'm trying to get somebody else's work done before I handle stuff that I have to do for myself. So when I notice stuff like that happening, I'm like, okay, got to take a step back because now everything is kind of just, I'm starting to be late to places because, it's like a pattern. It affects, it's like a domino effect. So when I'm starting to notice these things, it's like, that's when I know I have to take a step back and really realign is the word. Because sometimes I really feel out of alignment. I know there are certain times during the year where I know within the past few months where I told my friends, I was like, I just feel so unaligned right now. And I need to figure out how to balance myself back. I'm also a Libra. So,
Yes.
we're very much about balance. So when I feel like I'm out of alignment or unbalanced, like it really affects me a lot. So I have to really be cognizant about what things really bring me back to earth and really like indulge in those things, or else I'm literally going to lose my mind. So
That self-awareness and that care, like I hope everyone listening is like really recognizing that um moving in the journey of recovering from people pleaser doesn't necessarily take the stress and everything away. What it does is it empowers you to learn how to listen to yourself and take care of yourself. And like, I love so much that you kind of keep coming back to being like, I recognize this now and I take it as a sign and I listen and then I take a step back because
mhm.
that burnout is real. And like you said, like that is another thing too that we have to remember is when we are not taking care of ourselves, like we're not only jeopardizing the quality of our life as far as like being able to do things we enjoy, but we're also affecting our longevity because
Yeah.
it's not good for our physical or our mental to keep running and ripping and doing everything for everybody and not taking care of ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy because I've noticed like some health changes in my body just because that stress causes. I started noticing those signs in my body. Like I started to gain a little bit of weight. I was the heaviest I had ever been in my life. And when I tell people like, I'm not used to this because I've just been like very just small growing up, but like I was at a point where it's like it was like a new body to me. And I was like, I'm not used to this, but it's because either I was overeating because I was stressed or I wasn't eating at all. So it was so different changes. Like even as a Black woman, my scalp like started to act crazy. And it was like, it was stress related. And the things that I was eating, like it all ties together.
It
So
really does. And like,
yeah.
that's why I always talk about self-care is not a luxury. It is a priority. It is a necessity.
Necessity.
It is a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
It is a
And
rule. What other
yeah.
words can we use?
And even speaking on self-care, what my I think in at the end of March, before going into April, I always know April is my busiest time of the year. Like I literally have to prepare for it because I know it always tries to take me out, but I don't let it. But my my assistant, it got to a point where we knew we were about to go into busy season, and she was like, before this month even starts, and my therapist told me this too, they were like, you need to set aside certain days during the month you are not going to do a thing. Like you are not going to touch a gallery. You are not going to touch your business phone. You're not doing this. We want you to go for walks. We want you to go get a massage. Like I got a massage MV subscription so that I can go get massages every month to keep my, my mental and my health just going well, because a lot of my stress builds up right here in my neck and my lower and mid back. So I have to really stay on top of like getting massages regularly, or else my body's just going to be all stiff, and I feel it. And especially if I'm sitting at the computer editing all day, I feel it. But they're just like, you have to be really intentional with your self-care days. Like you're not supposed to be taking them when you need them. You need to incorporate them before things happen. So because if I get to a point where I'm only taking them when my body is burnt out, it's probably going to be too late at that point. So I had to be super intentional with saying, okay, Mondays are my off days. I'm not doing anything. We're editing on Tuesdays. We're getting on phone calls on Wednesdays. Thursdays are going to be your other self-care days. Fridays is a spontaneous day, whatever you didn't finish from the week. Then you shoot Saturday, off Sunday, off Monday. And it's like clockwork now. So I finally have come into a really nice routine that makes sense for me. But it took a while to really it took learning myself to really get to that point where I can say, okay, I feel comfortable with taking a day off from work. Like my clients will understand, it's communicated ahead of time. She's not working on this day. Boom, I'm good. I'll get back to the work the next day, because I used to feel really guilty about taking a day off from work. But now it's like, I need it to stay sane.
Yes. And they will not die.
They won't. They won't.
I just have to keep saying that because I know what it feels like when people are pressuring you and making it seem like they're going to die. But the fact is they will not die. Again, if it's an emergency, call 911. You should not be calling me if it's an emergency. You should be calling 911. And if you can't call 911 for it, that means it's not an emergency. Go sit your butt down and I'll get to you when I get to you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. What are you most excited about in your life right now?
Honestly, I'm living in so many answered prayers right now. And I feel like all the hard work I've been putting into my business for the past 18, 19, 20, 21, 15, 20, 7 years, it's finally coming to fruition. It's always been my dream to travel the world and doing the thing that I love, which is photography. And I just recently got back from Dubai shooting for a travel agency. So it's like, oh my gosh, this is something I've always prayed for. I always want to go to Dubai, and I'm getting paid to do it, which is amazing. And then also just I recently got engaged. So literally to the love of my life.
I love it.
So I'm very just excited to just I guess move into that next chapter of my life. It just feels like everything has just been aligning recently. I've been receiving a lot of awards for the work that I do, and it's literally everything. It's back to back to back to back. It's I can't catch a break from all of the blessings that have just been pouring into my life, but it's all great things. And I'm just very excited for what the next few months hold, where Ashley Jean Creative is going to be, and just the lives that I'm going to impact with the business that I have, because now I have more time to do mentorship, educational stuff, which is what I've always wanted to do since opening up my business. So just super excited to just get all that stuff up and running. And then also planning for a wedding soon.
That is so amazing, because I can just imagine, I'm just assuming that a lot of the blessings that you're able to receive now is a result of not only the work you've been doing in your business, but the work you've been doing personally and overcoming this people pleasing. I don't know if you would have had room for all of this beautifulness if you hadn't done all that work.
Yes, I was literally thinking about that the other day, and I wrote it down. I said, because I think when I started therapy at the beginning of last year, I also started to become stronger in my faith. and just doing a lot of the work, like a lot of reading, a lot of journaling, just a lot of stuff to really learn about myself and really put the work in. And so when all these blessings did start coming in, I'm like, I made room for I actually made room for these blessings to come in. And I just couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. I'm still going through everything. And it's like, and I can't believe it. I still can't believe it.
Girl, I'm excited too. I'm getting excited. Ain't even my life, and I can just feel it. It's amazing. That is so beautiful. Okay. What message do you want to share? What message do you want to leave our listeners with today?
That's a good one. I think I already kind of mentioned it before, but like put yourself first. And I think that's like the biggest lesson that I've learned within the past year or two, or kind of just like my late 20s, is like the moment that I decided to put myself first and learn about myself, which is why I also started therapy. And I also encourage going to therapy too. I was able to just like have somebody that doesn't know me, but I'm talking to kind of tell me about myself and like noticing different things, different patterns. But it's also helped me to be more intentional with the things that I'm doing in my life, like how I spend my time, who I spend my time with, and really just being very intentional with the goals that I'm setting, the things that I'm doing. And a result of though, like doing that work, putting myself first and really learning myself, is like I'm really starting to see the fruits of my labor now. So oftentimes I know as women, we tend to put people before ourselves, and because we're just so nurturing and caring just by nature, but we also have to remember to pour into ourselves too. So I encourage you to don't be afraid to put yourself first. The world is going to be there. If you decide to just take a break and put yourself on pause, everything's going to be there when you get back. Trust me. So I would say.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. All right. Where can people connect with you if they want to stay in touch and hire you? Because she takes the best pictures. Y'all better hire her.
Yes. So on all social media channels, you can find me at Ashley Jean Creative. So that's ASHLEYJEAN Creative. So I am on YouTube. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and my website is also Ashley Jean Creative. So if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can find me on all platforms with that name.
Awesome. And do you have anything that like can share for people to continue kind of this work?
I would say I have a couple of resources on my website. I would say the one that kind of connects with this one the most would be how to elevate your client experience. So if you all go to the resources page on ashleyjeancreative.com, you'll see that free PDF. If you sign up for it, you'll receive it. And there are a lot of tips in there on how you can kind of set those firm boundaries if you're a service-based provider. And then just also some other tips that'll kind of help you along your journey, especially if you're a business owner like myself. So I would definitely check that out.
Awesome. That is so awesome. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing so much with us today. I know there are so many people who are going to connect with your story and their lives are going to be changed because you showed up here today. So thank you so much today. And I appreciate you. And I'm glad I got to connect up with you because like Ashley don't even be having time for me. Like, hey.
Oh.
But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. No, I have literally been looking forward to this since we met and you told me that you had a podcast. So very happy to be here and very blessed to just be able to share my story, because I don't think I've shared a lot of what I shared today with people. I don't think a lot of people know that, you know, I'll be going through it behind the scenes. So it's kind of just, I just opened up a little bit more today. So I hope everybody enjoys it.
Yes, vulnerability is power. I know that there are going to be so many people who appreciate this. So thank you.
Of course, of course.
All right, we'll catch y'all next time.